All right. Well, hello everyone, back online. Let's see. It's Sunday, December 26th, day after Christmas. I'm here to talk about a movie, a Netflix special that my wife and I watched. We've watched it twice now. It's called Don't Look Satire, a Netflix exclusive. I think it's been in theaters too. So I just want to give my reaction to that. On this channel, I talk about a lot of things, but a lot of the time I talk about climate change, global heating, the impacts we can expect of that. Um, and my frustrations, I guess, with all that. Well, someone out there is equally frustrated as I am, and they made a movie. Now, Don't Look Up about is a fictional account of a comet. They call it. It looks a little more like an asteroid to me, a big rock. But anyway, a celestial object that's hurtling towards Earth. Of course, is discovered by a young scientist working alone in the, you know, observatory, and everyone's all excited about a new celestial object until it turns out that it's headed straight for Earth, and it's a very high probability, nearly 100% of impact. They also know the size of the object, and it's what they call a planet killer or planet buster. They make one kind of obscure reference, obscure if you're not a scientist, that the comet object is twice the size of the Chicxulub object that that impacted. That's true. That's a true thing. The Chicxulub object that hit the planet about 65 million years ago was the reason, we believe, for the extinction of the dinosaurs and most other large surface animals that were alive at that time, making room, of course, for humans as mammals. Mammals existed at the time, but with that impactor hitting the Earth and disturbing the Earth dynamic system enough, the dinosaurs went extinct and the mammals were able to evolve to fill in all the niches, that all the ecological services that the dinosaurs. So they mentioned it kind of in passing that it's twice the size of that. And so the implication of it, of course, is that it is immensely lethal. Now, this movie, even though that's the premise of the movie, and that's that's the plot, that's the layout. So we're going to roll with this now. It's a space drama, right? The real subject of the movie is, well, it could be one of several things, but I'm just going to say that it's global climate change. That's really what the movie's about. So they did kind of a clever thing. They took a topic that they thought was current. So this, in a few years, this movie will be dated. We'll look back on this movie and say, wow, wasn't that funny? What did they get right? What did they get wrong? Right? It's very specific and topical, and so it probably doesn't have a long shelf life. But in any case, it's really a veiled look at climate change, how we're reacting to that. Like I said, I watched it twice, and the first time through, I was working in the kitchen and we were watching it. I was working in the kitchen. I'm not big into Netflix. We don't have a Netflix account. We just opened one up to watch this movie on someone else's recommendation. And so, well done, Netflix. Yeah, you got some customers. I'm not much into dramas and space operas and things like that. Like I tell my wife all the time, I've got one problem. It's global heating, and I have to stay ahead of that personally. I have to do what I can to manage that risk. But this was sort of about that. So I watched it, and I was in the kitchen and I was puttering around, and as I was watching it, I became very viscerally uh, uncomfortable. I, I, I was watching it. I was watching, and getting angry. I was watching, getting angry. And if you're thinking that, okay, here's a scientist talking about a science fiction, if you're thinking it's because the science was off, it's not. I'm not an astrophysicist. I kind of can't speak to the science. It seemed okay to me. The science seemed okay to me. I understand large impactors, large bolides. I understand extinction level events. I understand atmospheric dynamics and earth dynamics. So the science looked okay to me. what what got me upset and angry was just watching how the scientists were being treated, how the science was being treated, not even like on a personal level, like, making them feel bad, calling them names or something like that. What, all of which I had to deal with when I was growing up. Okay. It wasn't even that so much, although it probably was a little bit of that. It's like, yeah, that's how it is. We get mistreated a lot. Sometimes it's subtle, and sometimes it's a little more overt. But in any case, that wasn't what had me viscerally upset when I was watching it. It was that I recognized that the way those scientists and their discovery of this planet destroying object, the way they were being treated, felt familiar. It's how climate scientists are being treated. And I count myself among that segment of society. Okay, so as I was watching it, I have been able, a little bit of context here, I have been able to isolate myself from the social trends around climate change. I am not an educator. I don't speak to the subject. I don't give talks. I don't give debates. I don't go on Reddit boards and Zero Hedge or anywhere else to debate people about science or the scientific method or anything else. I just don't do it. I have very little exposure to the public. I have worked a little bit within the political realm in terms of this topic. It came up right here in where I live, my city where I live. I got sort of recruited as a scientific advisor to speak to some of the topics. I wasn't mistreated, but I saw how the entire process was just constantly always geared towards denial. It's just not a problem. We don't have time for this. This is nonsense. The things you're recommending are not practical. There's no political support for this. What about jobs? What about economics? And so I have some very recent personal experience in the same sort of position that the scientists in the movie were in, the nasty corrosive interface between science and politics. Corrosive, nasty. Okay, just nasty, very demeaning, very painful. And so while I was watching this movie, this drama, this satire, it kind of sort of reawakened that component for me. So I was watching it and becoming increasingly agitated, and it was very hard for me to get through certain parts of it. But then, I just started to roll with it and basically just separate myself from the reality. And I have done that in my private life. I am completely separated. And in fact, spoiler alerts, I guess. I mean, not really. This is my life. Okay, so there's no spoiler alerts for me. If you're a scientist and you watch this movie, you know exactly how this is going to end. There's no question in your mind how this is going to end. No question. Okay? There's no spoiler alerts for someone who's studying science and climate science and the sixth mass extinction. There's no spoiler alerts necessary for this. But as I was watching the movie, the characters of the scientists increasingly just gave up. They just increasingly gave up. And it was a good thing they did, I think. And I think it's good that I did. So my scientist reaction to this isn't about the science of the movie or the technology, or could they do it this way, or maybe they should have done it that way, or this is silly, or anti-gravity doesn't exist, or whatever. All the usual problems people have with science fiction. That's not my reaction to it. My reaction to it is that the way they portrayed the scientists and how they were treated by politicians and the public and how they gave up is true. How they gave up. They just gave up. And, towards the end, they say, we tried. We just really tried. And they're all together and they're saying, we tried. I know you tried, and I tried, and we tried. And there was no chance. There was no chance of success. Not a chance, not a slim chance of success. Not a snowball's chance in hell of success. And that's where I'm at. I'm there. I am there. I'm totally there. I don't care anymore. I'm like Kate in the movie. It's like, fuck it. I don't care. I'll sign whatever you want. Any NDA, I'll sign it. You don't want me to talk? Well, I won't talk. You don't want me on TV shows anymore? Oh, fine. I don't want to be on TV shows. Fuck them. Okay. I'll sign it. I will disappear. And that's what she does. And that's what I have done. It's hopeless. The entire thing is hopeless. And as I was watching this movie and as it played out exactly the way it's playing out today in IRL, okay, it's hopeless. I mean, no hope. None. No hope. And I don't think the people making the movie were trying to instill hope. There was no implied unless. This is how it's going to be, unless. No. There is no unless. This is how it's going to be. Full stop. Full stop. This is how it's going to be. Be. This is how it's going to be. Now the producers and the directors of the movie and the actors will say, look, it's a cautionary tale. It's satire. It's meant to awaken in people an awareness of their situation by poking fun at it and having a good time. And it's very cleverly done. It's very cleverly done. It's probably one of the more meaningful movies I've watched in ages. I'm deeply moved by it. It's probably going to cause some people to commit suicide. The movie Avatar had that effect on people. There was a kind of Avatar derangement syndrome where people would come out of the theater suicidal because they got the subtext of Avatar, which is that we destroyed planet Earth and now we're trying to save ourselves by destroying another species and their planet. Okay, and that's how it is. Wow, yeah, that's not even fiction, folks. The movie Avatar struck a nerve for a lot of people. And they came out of the theaters depressed and angry and hurt. And, so I came out of this movie angry and hurt, not because they hurt my feelings or made me look bad as a segment of society in this movie and poked fun at me and all that kind of stuff, or they screwed up the science or they screwed up the facts. I came out of it because it's true. I came out of it angry and hurt because it's true. So that's my scientist reaction. The science is good enough, fine. But the reality is, that's me. That's me in that movie. And like those characters, I'm done. I'm done with you people. I was telling my wife that the irony is that the movie is called Don't Look Up. Now, that is not the advice of the protagonist, the scientist. The scientists are telling people, look, this is a celestial object. It's in the sky. It's right there. If you think there's not a comet, there it is. You see that? There it is. And it's going to get bigger every night. And soon it's going to be as big as the sky because it's coming right here. Just look up. You'll see it. You don't want to take my word for it. Look. You don't even need a telescope anymore, or a calculator, or calculus, or orbital dynamics, or a whiteboard. There it is. Okay, that's what the scientists are saying. So where does the title of the movie come from? Don't Look Up. That's the advice of the politicians. Essentially, they can't tell us what to do with our eyes. We don't have to look up and become fearful. We have to look at the ground and Where's the path? The path forward to jobs and prosperity is not up in the sky. It's right here at your feet. Just look down at your feet. Put one foot in front of another. Just walking like this. That's how you walk. That's how you go someplace. You just look at the path and you just walk one foot in front of the other. Don't look up. And that's their advice. That's their entirety of their advice. Just don't look up, and people buy it. And of course, there's all this divisive bullshit about, don't tell us what to do with our eyes, and my eyes are mine, and I don't have to look at your stupid sky and your fake, video game comet or whatever it is. I have a reality. I have my alternative facts, and in my world, there's no comet, and it's a hoax, and it's the Chinese, and it's all this stuff that we've been hearing for 5 years. Meryl Streep does a brilliant job portraying, again, a kind of a pastiche of Donald Trump, Ronald Reagan, Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, just a bunch of kind of very clever but sociopathically deranged smart people, right? Just deranged. They're just deranged. They just say things. And of course, the people who are egging them on are buying it because they want that narrative. A big part of the movie is narrative. What narrative are we going to spin around this? How are we going to spin this? It's the tail wagging the dog scenario, right? The tail is wagging the dog here. It's all spin. It's all cynicism. It's all, people are easy to manipulate. We can spin this. They're going to eat it up. It's going to be great entertainment. Our ratings are going to go through the roof and all this kind of stuff. And, for a scientist, what I am, okay, I'm claiming that, to see that cynical, toxic, human response play out in a movie, it's the thing I am trying to avoid. And my response to it is, well, they're making it funny in this movie, and that's clever. So I'll watch this movie. But when I come away from the movie, I'm thinking, yeah, that's right. And that's kind of what satire does. Satire kind of, because it's supposed to be somewhat funny and seductive in that funny way, it kind of seduces you into looking at something that you're kind of trying to avoid. So it made me look. So I looked, and I came away from it feeling even more detached from all of this than I was before. Seriously, it's hard for me to care. It is really hard for me to care. As an aside, I don't look at climate change or global heating data anymore. I don't read the papers. I don't study it. I see the headlines. Okay, well, we're still on glide path to be completely fucked. Okay, fine. All right, nothing has changed. Still fucked. Okay, and I go on about my business. I'm really not interested in the details anymore, and I have stopped following and watching and friending or following, subscribing to channels that sort of are all about the data, because I can't face it anymore. I get it. Okay. WASF. I get it. I'm still interested in what's happening with the weather, the Earth system. I still follow the ice melt, any major glaciers that break up and disappear, sea level rise, major storms, major hurricane events, and also tornado cluster outbreaks and things like that. I'm still interested in how the system is responding to the damage we've done to it, and the response, the excursion, as I like to call it, the migration of the Earth system away from a familiar norm that's been kind of familiar to us for about 10,000 years. The Earth departing from that norm and going on an excursion to some new norm. It'll be normal to people who experience it for 100 years, and you'll only know it in retrospect. Oh, I guess we've arrived. We were here, and then over 50 or 100 years, we did all this, and all this, in air quotes, is one disaster after another, right? And now we're here. It's like, okay, here we go. Let's see how long this lasts. That excursion, okay, is what's happening right now. The planet is on an excursion. It's going someplace. Of course, it's taking us with it, and we don't know where it's going. We can think about predicting that, but we don't know where it's going. It's probably not going to be like a Chicxulub-sized meteor heating the Earth. Probably not, but it might be. That discussion is what we should be having. We should be having that discussion. Should be asking ourselves, okay, well, okay, if it's going to be that big, maybe we should be planning on what we want to preserve, what part of civilization we want to make sure endures, how we're going to set that aside, how we're going to pass that into the future. The fall of the Roman Empire is one example of how things can be lost. The so-called Dark Ages were dark because nobody wrote anything. And we had to basically reinvent culture all over again in the West. Of course, the Dark Ages didn't affect the East, but we had to sort of reinvent everything all over again. So we do have an experience of what that's like. And that was about a 500-year period in the West when we just didn't have anything that the Romans wrote about 500 years. So let's imagine we go into a dark age, and this excursion maybe takes 100 years, and then for another 100 or 200 years, we're not together enough to be able to do much, and then we emerge from that. And what are we like when we emerge? Will we have Latin? Will we have the equivalent of Latin? Will we have any of our cultural heritage, or will we be reduced to Stone Age peoples? I don't know. It could go either way. But it's the difference between a controlled demolition, meaning you decide to let it fall apart, but you're going to take some things with you, versus an uncontrolled demolition, where you're just like Nero fiddling while Rome burns, and whatever you get is what you get, and it's a random thing. Maybe you get some of your cultural artifacts, and maybe you just get ashes, and maybe some things that don't burn. And that's what you start over with. So when my wife and I are talking, I'm saying it's always, always, always a decision between, do you want a controlled demolition or an uncontrolled demolition? Because you're going to get a demolition. And that's what this movie was about, really. Here's your demolition. But this one in particular was, well, you don't survive, really. You don't. In the movie, anyway. What about us? I don't know. These are early days, right? This is the beginning of a long period of, oh my God. Oh my God. Why didn't somebody tell us? They knew. Why didn't they tell us? We tried. We tried. And pretty soon, maybe even a couple of years ago, it didn't even matter anymore. We tried. Maybe it was too late. Fine. It's too late. But we tried. And at some point, it doesn't matter anymore. At some point, you're just in the jaws of it. And that's what the movie is about. They tried. They failed. Uncontrolled demolition. And so, yeah, it was painful for me to watch. I enjoyed the humor. I saw myself in the movie. I saw my colleagues in the movie. I know a lot of us right now, IRL, are having a hard time. Very hard time. It's very difficult right now to know what we know, and just can't do anything. Completely powerless. It's hard. So what? As I like to say, toughen up, buttercup. Get a hobby, distance yourself from it, as I have done. I am distanced. And, the movie brought me back a little bit, but It also reminded me that I'm doing the right thing, putting on some distance, putting on some perspective, and watching you people just fuck it up. Just fuck it up. You're just fucking it up. Okay, fine, fine. Okay, okay. Anyway, not very uplifting, I guess. I would encourage you to watch the movie. Watch it more than once. It's deep, it's fast moving, and you'll find yourself in it, as I did. There's some, everybody is in that movie somewhere. Trust me. Oh, yeah, you're in there. You are in there, and you may not find yourself, but it's like they say, if you're in a gambling hall and you don't know who the mark is, then it's you. Okay. And if you don't see yourself in the movie, then you're the one that's being satired. Okay. So I encourage you. They did a good job with it. It was brilliantly done. I watched it twice. I'll probably watch it again, and it just reinforces to me that uh, I got to move on. All right, I just got to move on. I got to keep moving, and I got to put this behind me. I'm done.